Okay, so welcome back to JAMS International Seminar Day 1. Now we commence the panel 1, namely development on and future challenges on math. I'm very honored to introduce 3 distinguished speakers from industry. The first panelist and moderator of this panel is James Fanchel. He retired from the Royal Navy in he retired from the Royal Navy in 2005 after 35 years services. James chairs the UK Maritime Autonomous Systems Regulatory Working Group, which has released the industry code of practice for the safe operation of maritime autonomous ships. He is the moderator for the UNECE work on autonomy on inland waterways. He is a director of Zur Associate and the Anglo-Belgian Shipping Company. He is a board advisor to Seekit International and the director of Maritime Strategy for Drone Major Group. The second panelist is Captain Jun Nakamura. He joins Nippon Yusen Kabushiki Kaisha NYK Line and was promoted to the master in 2020. The vessel he has boarded on include LNG, LPG, container car, heavy lift, and driver carriers. Inland-based operations, he was engaged in dry bulk Marine Quality Control Group and Capesize Bulker Group. He seconded from NYK to MTI in 2018 to work on the development of autonomous vessels. In the development of autonomous vessels, he conducted a demonstration test using a tugboat for remote operations in 2019 and the domestic crewless vessels in 2022 at Meguri 2040. The third panelist is Ifo Biatsuki. He started his career as an airline pilot and instructor before progressing into the senior management for 2 major airlines. He was then offered the opportunity to join Seekit, which designed and manufactured remotely controlled uncrewed surface vessels for multiple mission configurations. Ifo was part of a Seekit team that developed the technology for the JIBCO Nippon Foundation team that won the Shell Ocean Discovery X Prize. And the Ifo is a member of the UK Maritime Autonomous System Regulatory Working Group, as well as being the secretary of the Mass People Working Group, which is made up of the worldwide flag state administrations with the goal of creating global training standards that will hopefully be adopted by IMO. So I'd like to give the floor to James, to the moderator. James, the floor is yours.
And with a bit of luck, technology is going to work and the microphone is going to kick in. Is it working? Yes. There's so much technology in this place, it's frightening. Okay. If I do this, how do I move the slides on? Okay, I'm going to crack straight on because time is tight. I hope you can all hear me. As you know, my name is James Fanshaw, and I've been doing autonomous stuff for over a decade now. I thought I'd start not knowing what the keynote speakers were going to say, who've eaten most of the sandwiches I'm bringing along to this party, by summarizing some, but not necessarily all, of the roles that maritime autonomous systems and ships are actually doing today. Commercial operations are coming along. There are detailed plans in train now for example, 100-meter container ships, which will be unmanned. Oil and gas is an obvious example. All the MSR, marine scientific research stuff, I don't intend to go through it all. There isn't time. Underwater asset management. There's a lot going on in the defence sector, which some of you will be aware of and involved in. And then when it gets to really the subject of JAMS, thank you for calling your conference so close to my name, Maritime and Border Security. And then I've put one particular point in there, which is comms relay, which particularly in search and rescue, having done a number of SAR rescue missions in my life, is so important. Now, if I do this, we should move on a slide. Yeah, we do. Look at that. But look, come on, let's have a reality check here. You know, I just picked out a couple of recent incidents. There's a Damgrass collision with the bulk carrier Revlin in August last year. And I picked one that was pertinent to Japan. This is Kazu 1, which was a sightseeing boat in April last year. The fact is, and previous speakers have highlighted this, unfortunately, we have a ridiculous number of accidents at sea. That is the 2022 tally, 928 maritime accidents, and you can see the number of vessels lost. And as a previous speaker highlighted, 80 even more % allegedly have human failure as their prime cause. I'm always very nervous of these figures because sometimes technology fails, but it's the humans who don't actually react quick enough, and they may not have time to do it. So just a note of caution there. And these are IMO figures, and there I've broken it down. And of course, people tend to forget that we're talking about accidents, groundings, collisions, and allisions. I'm sure this audience is well versed in what an allision is. And then, of course, sadly, and I've been part of them, there are a number of fires and explosions and so on. I'm going to move on to the specific topic of this whole JAMS thing, which is search and rescue. The first question I ask is, what's more relevant, search or rescue? And in my experience, it tends to be the most difficult phase when you're looking for victims. You don't know where they are. You have a hunch. You know, I've taken Channel 16 calls from a yacht in distress, and in a warship, it's quite useful. You've got a direction finder and you can, you know, resolve the bearing and crash down it. But then you have to go and search for what's going on. That is very often the most difficult part of search and rescue. Once they've been found, of course, there are many ways in which they can be rescued. And here's just one example. Here's a lady called Susie Goodall being rescued in the South Pacific a couple of years ago. Let's not dwell on that. So my key point here is that the search phase can often be the most difficult, and time will be of the essence. I mean, you're all aware of the amount of time you can spend in the water in, say, the North Atlantic, slightly different in warmer waters, but wherever you are, wherever the incident is, time will be the absolute critical thing. I've put a few examples here of mass. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can, some of them will be familiar, and I've picked some from this side of the world and one example from the other side of the world. But I am going to focus in on one particular vessel because apart from anything else, it has a very close link to the Nippon Foundation. And if our speaker from the Nippon Foundation is watching, you'll see your banner on the side of Max Lima. Max Lima was very largely funded by Nippon to go into the X Prize and won it. This is a picture from a more recent op, which I'm about to go into more detail about. I thought I'd just list the key attributes. You've got long endurance. You know, you're not sending a ship out with people who desperately trying to get back by Friday afternoon. You can do up to 30 days, longer even, with today's technologies. You can operate them autonomously or remotely. You've got over-the-horizon command and control of the vessel. And by way of example, I'm about to go into the Tonga experience last year, almost a year ago, where that vessel, Max Lima, was controlled from Essex here in the United Kingdom. And in the case of SeaKit, you've got their own product called G-Savvy. You've got active and passive roll stabilization, station holding capabilities to within 2 meters, and you've got 360 forward thrusters. Those are just some of the key attributes. But what's of more importance is to look at the capabilities you've got. And this is where you bounce into the world of SAR, because this little vessel, she's 12 meters long. You've got examples up to 24 meters, which are at sea today, in different parts of the world, have got a phenomenal package of capabilities. I don't intend to go through them all, but you've got there the above water sensors, the onboard computing and comms and underwater sensors and effectors and so on and so on. And put this all together and say, well, they may be out there doing marine scientific research, for example, but how much use can they be if there is an emergency? And let's face it, none of us wake up in the morning expecting an emergency to happen, which leads to a search and rescue. If you've got a unit out there somewhere nearby that has got that sort of capability package on board and can be used through the rescue control center or whatever, why would you not choose to do it? I'm just going to give a little bit of profile to Max Lima's most famous thing. Some of you will recognize this is Honga Chunga Honga, Haipai, and that is the volcano that erupted off Tonga. And this is the close link with Nippon, again, because Tonga gave a lot of money when Japan had a similar event leading to the tsunami, and the favor was returned, if you like. And of course, the great advantage was that they wanted something unmanned that could go on top of the caldera. And out of a number of options, Max Lima was selected. She was shipped out in a container all the way to Tonga and conducted operations. And that's the result. That's a picture of the caldera taken from Max Lima. I won't dwell on that. I want to touch on a couple of other aspects. We talked at the moment about surface vessels, but of course these can either work with or be associated with a variety of unmanned underwater vehicles. There's a good example. That's live. Some of you may recognize that as the wreckage of Air France in the Atlantic. And then, of course, you've got ROVs. The difference, if anyone is unclear, very simple. The UUVs go without any tether, and the ROVs have normally got some kind of tether to control them. I wouldn't rule out the opportunities here for UAVs, for SAR, and as these vessels get a little bit bigger, there is serious consideration being given to actually deploying drones, as so many people call them, UAVs, from unmanned surface vessels or MAS. And the opportunities are absolutely clear. And even the ability to rescue people, top right there, you can see lifebelts being deployed from a UAV, which could have come from a MAS. Now, at the moment, you've heard a lot about IMO, and I'm the chairman of the group in UK that's done a lot of work on industry codes. So I thought I'd give that a bit of a profile. What we wanted to do, and this we've been working for 10 years now, was to give pan-industry agreement on certain aspects of MAS, because we wanted to show that the MAS community was acting responsibly and with one intent, which is safely. We wanted to try and draw forward best practice and give assurance to the maritime community at large that we were being sensible. We were acting with nothing other than safety and professionalism in mind. We specifically, from the word go, realized that it was not just about unmanned. It was about the connection between people who might be in a remote control center and the unmanned vessel. And one big point that I always offer is that these things have got to find their way into the order of life at sea. They can't expect everybody else to move over and, make way for them and do things differently because they've arrived. I don't agree with that. And of course, we need to be absolutely assured that those humans that are in or on the loop, as people call it, are properly trained. Compliance, self-regulation, and one of the things that's so important is that we have better communications within the industry and the wider maritime community. And thank you, Jans. This is exactly what this conference is all about. Just to show you the UK code, the last version of it was version 6, which we published in November last year. I have put the link there, so I assume that that'll be available for people, but it's on the Maritime UK site. Now, quite a lot of people will say, well, hang on a minute. You know, how can you fulfill your role if there's no one on board? So I've slammed up here the requirements for SAR within international law. These are probably, you know, bread and butter stuff for those of you in the Coastguard communities, but they're relevant. Must proceed with all possible speed, etc., etc., etc. This really should not be news to anybody, but they're relevant. And what I've been working on is how they can be applied to mass operations. With a bit of luck, this will come up. Right. The international state obligation of rendering assistance be practically discharged by the master of a ship rather than the ship itself. So if the master is deemed to be in the remote control center, there should not be a particular issue. The duty can't lie with the MAS, but only potentially to persons operating it. That's a key point. State obligations will only find application if MAS is itself a ship. Somebody's already referred to vessels in Colregs and ships in SOLAS and so on. Let's not go down that road this morning. A master under Section 313 of the so-called Merchant Shipping Act here in the UK is all about command and charge. These are relevant. Let me just click on. There we go. So those are the 3 bullets that I plucked out there. So my conclusion is these are absolutely applicable to mass operations. There is no problem. Some of you will be familiar with what a remote control station looks like. Some people call them ROCs, remote operating centers. Let's not get too stuck with the definition business. But top left there, you've got an example from CKIT. You've got L3 ASV. You've got an old Rolls there and an ABB one. And those are just to show you what this thing is all about. IMO instruments. You've heard a lot about IMO already, but it's quite interesting when you actually look through the full panoply of the instruments. People tend to get stuck with the top 4, but of course there are an awful lot more, and there may be relevance to all of these for mass in SAR. The class societies are very active in this. Whether you go to LR, Lloyd's Register here, or you go to DMV or BV, it doesn't matter, or the others. I'm personally in discussion with the international group of, you know, that control all these things. And they are all giving their considered opinions, which aren't necessarily always the same, but that doesn't matter. It's healthy in a way because we need the debate. But I just want to reassure you that the class societies are well engaged. Another thing that tends to come up is the whole business of insurance. The P&I clubs are fairly, well, not fairly, they're very forward-leaning in the opportunity because what they see is this is just another case of risk management. That's their business. Got it. Finally, the human element. Humans, my message is, will always be in the loop. Training. We've got to attract and retain bright people. Got it. You can please take your 0 minute down. There's a summary, and my final slide goes Japanese. Thank you. And I'll be looking forward to some questions. Okay. For what it's worth, they cut me down to 10 minutes from 12, which wasn't to have been 15. Okay. Now, our next, I'm supposed to be doing Q&A, but I think we'll hold that and move on to our next speaker, if you're ready to go. He's already been introduced to you, Captain Jun Nakamura from MTI in Japan. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for, sorry to give me